Welcome to another episode of the Digital Dentistry Decoded podcast, where we keep you in the know for everything digital dentistry. I'm Dr. Ahmad Al-Hassiny here, your host from IDD. And what we're going to talk about today is implants. Everything dental implants. Now, we've been super lucky on this podcast. We've had a huge number of amazing guests from basically all the major digital dentistry companies. And today is another amazing guest, Tobias Richter from Peri-implants. Welcome, Tobias.
Yeah, thank you, Ahmad. Thank you for having me. I'm doing very well, and I'm grateful to be on your podcast. It's a real pleasure.
It's my pleasure, my friend. I'm sure we're going to learn so much about you, and I'm sure the listeners want to learn everything that you've done, because I think you're the guy who's kind of really shaken up dental implants as of late. There's been a lot of talk about your company, especially the digital spin that you have gone down, which is really, really cool. Especially, I love digital dentistry. But please, some of you people listening may not know what tri-dental implants is, may not know about you. Please go ahead. What's your background? How long have you been doing this? When did you start Tri?
Yeah, absolutely. So first of all, we say TRI, not try. But you can try a TRI. That you no problem. So yeah, maybe just a little bit about myself. I've been long in this industry. I started my career with Straumann. I was a product manager there, was responsible for the Synocta prosthetics, and then launched the SL Active Surface as sort of the main project into the market. And then actually wanted to be more an entrepreneur and so started actually the Implant Direct business in Europe. So that was actually in 2007. And then in 2010, the owner of Implant Direct decided to sell the company to the Danaher Group, which then put me into the position where I had two fundamental experiences in this industry. One with a market leader, quality, science, education, and then Implant Direct, a more lean, value for money, agile company. And I thought, what's the next big step that is going to challenge implant dentistry? And or in another way, how can we take implant dentistry to the next level so it really reflects dental clinics are changing, how workflows are changing? Because in the end, it's all about workflows. And we said digitalization is going to change dentistry. And we thought about concepts, how we can develop a dental implant that best reflects the properties and necessities of modern dental clinics, of modern digital workflows to work as seamless as possible. So that was the vision which we started out. And, you know, the most iconic sort of reflection of it is our Matrix implant. We will probably talk more about in our podcast about it, which is the world's first dental implant that does not require an abutment anymore, based on a digital interface, a plug and play, a digital interface to all digital equipments that are out there in the market. Maybe as a side note, I also co-started the platform dentalcampus.com. You have surpassed us definitely with your platform. So congrats to you. You're doing an amazing job, Ahmad. And I mean, with the short time that you have been doing this, you have really reached the globe. And wherever I go and meet any digital customer, right, the people who are pioneers and early adopters, your name drops very fast. I also started a dental clinic group in Germany. We have, it's a smaller size group. We have 6 clinics there. And I'm also a shareholder and board member of Germany's biggest lab group, which gives me a good holistic view on what is happening. So we, from implants over clinics, over labs and education, I sort of have the opportunity to look from all angles on what's happening. And the unifying aspect is really the digitalization, digital dentistry. And to be honest, it's a lot of fun. You know, I remember my first IDS, and the first IDS I was new to dentistry, so I looked at plaster models, I looked at wax ups, and I looked at the world has changed. We are now in a high-tech industry, truly. We talk from scanners, we talk about printers and CAD/CAM and guided surgery and AI planning, AR potentially coming along. So I think there's never been a more exciting period. And luckily, we've early on asked ourselves, what is needed in implant dentistry to be a significant player in this game? And every year, with every step, every progression in digitalization, our value proposition, I think, becomes more and more relevant. So this is a little bit my story on how we got to TRI and what makes us special. And again, working with partners like you is amazing, because I think in this period where we talk about digital dentistry, it's all about having the right partners and interchanging, because it's so moving so fast. It's actually an interesting point I wanted to ask you as well and get your feedback. I'm now at many of these meetings like the EAO and the AO, etc. And most of the lectures are structured based on the scientific data that is found. What we run into, however, is some sort of a contradiction, right? I mean, digital technology develops so fast that there's not even enough time to create scientific evidence for the devices or products which are out there. So what's your view on that? Because it's a dilemma in a way, right? Because innovation cannot be backed up anymore with the same scientific evidence that maybe used to be there, 10-year long-term data.
Yeah, look, there's so much to piece here, my friend. I love it, man. Every time I speak to you, honestly, it's amazing, and I get so inspired. I mean, I've met Tobias a couple of times in Germany and IDS and shows. And
Chicago.
Firstly, the Chicago, well, 4 things. Firstly, thank you very much, man. It's honestly a huge honor, and to hear you say that means a lot, especially someone like you. Secondly, you're quite an incredible guy, man. You walk around quite humbly saying how much you do, but for those of people listening, the guy runs an implant company. He runs a huge DSO lab, clinics. He's been involved in implants for how many decades? Maybe 2 to 3 decades. It is incredible with the wealth of knowledge that you have, man. And it's I'm just wondering, how come I have darker circles than you? This is all I'm wondering. Like, what am I doing wrong here? But let's take it piece by piece, and we'll get into the research bit, because I think that's super interesting. The research bit and how fast the industry is moving, because you're 100% right. The research can't keep up. When we're getting scanners every year, like iPhones, how do you keep up? When we're getting people printing stuff now and full arch restorations and new materials, how do you keep up? And how do you decide what works and doesn't? I'm really curious about your story, Tobias. I know we want to get into the good stuff, but so you were at Straumann and you launched Implant Direct, which everyone knows is highly successful. How long have you been in the implant game? How many years have you actually been involved in dental implant one way or another? And I guess second to that, what have you witnessed? Like, I kind of see, especially we'll get into the Tri-Matrix series, that was, I see as a very strategic move to launch something like that to try disrupt the industry. But again, how long have you been within implants, and what have you seen? Has there been a lot of change, or, a bit of implant history? I'm sure is interesting for everyone.
No, 100%. I mean, I started actually 2001. So it's now 23 years. It's unbelievable, but it is 23 years. And it's interesting, when I started at Straumann, there was only a tissue level implant. They didn't have a bone level implant, right? I mean, then again, it was interesting. It was the time really of Noble Biocare, right? Noble Biocare launched Procera. They had the teeth in 1 hour concept. They had Noble Guide. I mean, they were cutting edge in the early 2000s. They lost the spice, then in the, 2010 going forward. But some of the concepts they were thinking of were quite innovative at that time. And I think, when you ask me really about the transformational change, I think there's not any more discussion whether a implant surface works or whether an implant works. I think you may have preferences on certain topographies, but really the question today, and that is the biggest change I personally perceive, is that we as medical device producers have to think about the workflows that you experience in your clinics, and not so much anymore about is the osseointegration period 2 months or 3 months, because we know this works. And the workflows are highly connected with the digitalization. So that was a big change. And just to the point of what we are doing today with the Matrix would not have been possible 15 years ago, because CAD/CAM machines weren't precise enough. I mean, 3D printers didn't exist. Intraoral scanners weren't precise enough. We will probably talk later on about Elite and stuff like what's possible with full arch scanning. Zirconia wasn't around really 15 years ago, which is an essential material for final restorations today, and which guarantees us that with a matrix connection, we can actually work with the precision on the CAD/CAM machine. So the digitalization and the increase of precision has allowed us to integrate work on new prosthetic solutions. And so I think the biggest transformational change in the last 20 years is really this workflow thinking that is now being applied in every single clinic. And anyone who's not thinking in the workflows, I think, is not able to offer adequate, long-term, sustainable, and cost-effective solutions for dentists.
100%. And that's the same with scanners, my friend. You hit the nail on the head. I mean, just like, what I understood from you is that all implants these days work. And I haven't used all implants, but I've used 7, 8 systems, all the major brands, and I would agree they all seem to work. Even with scanners, they all seem to work. It is all about software. It is all about integrations. What does the tool do in my practice?
Absolutely.
And I'm super curious about one thing. So you worked in Straumann, and obviously you were doing exceptionally well there. What was the push to start your own dental implant company? I mean, that takes guts, man.
I think, first of all, I have the biggest admiration for Straumann. So I don't have any hard feelings. Opposite, I think it's a great company. And I'm very grateful what I learned there. But if you are someone who has maybe more disruptive ideas, or you want to be moving fast, it's maybe not the best place, in my point of view. Naturally, based on these big organizations, you have much more committees, you have much more long-term project planning, which is where here as an entrepreneur, and this was always one of my urges, to be able to make fast, immediate decisions, and also the ability to think holistically, to think about the overall solution, because that's also one dilemma I experienced at Straumann, that you have a business unit for prosthetics, you have a business unit for implants, you have a business unit for regenerations. I don't know if it's still the same today. And in prosthetics, everyone will improve the abutment to the best level. I don't think anyone in the business unit prosthetics will eliminate the abutment. That would be surprising. So there's an inherent...
Do you want to say why they wouldn't?
Well, yes, I have to say it. I said it on another podcast, actually. I think the revenue they make with abutments also hurts if you lose that. So there's an inherent conflict that is there. But you asked me for why I left, and I didn't feel that I had the entrepreneurial ability to execute on ideas and be fast like I would have if I started my own company. And again, this is with the greatest respect and admiration for Straumann. But it is... I guess it's the nature. This bigger a company becomes, the slower your go-to-market is. And the other thing, it was definitely also just to be an entrepreneur, to be able to get up in the morning and decide, how I structure my day, what I do, where I get involved. I wouldn't have been able to, start different ventures, I guess, within a Straumann organization.
You're the boss. You're the CEO now.
Yeah, there are certain advantages to it. There also doesn't say that everything is easy, right? And when you have to finance stuff, you have to make sometimes decisions which are tougher. But I guess the core of what drives me and also our team is this passion for innovation. I mean, it's just a lot of. I think, again, as I said earlier, I think there's never been a more exciting time in dentistry to be in. And if you are, as we are, I believe, at the forefront of knowing what's happening, how, what the latest digital gadgets are, how they have to be connected to really provide a faster solution for the doctor, a cost-effective solution that is more personalized to the patient, these 3 elements, then I think that's a big privilege that we can do that. And I still see it, that because we obviously not the same size as Straumann, that we are much more agile in bringing innovations to the market. And we will maybe talk about some of the innovations, the apps that we have. Some of these things we develop in a couple of weeks and put them out as a software interface to our implant. And I think it's a wonderful situation, and it's fun. That's also important. Besides the benefit we bring to the market.
You have to have fun on the way, and you have brought benefit to the market. I mean, I think you have brought a very interesting solution. Disclaimer, I use the implants, but they're not the only implants that I use. If you go on my Instagram, you'll see my stories.
Yes.
I'm placing Knots, Ostem, sometimes Nobel, sometimes Straumann here and there. And of course, Tobias's implants, which are TRI implants, not Tri. I've been saying that the whole time. And you've never corrected me, man. All these conferences, I've been telling you, try. Anyway.
No worries.
Not a bad time to correct me on my podcast. That's okay. This is the time to correct me. But insane, you mentioned innovations, and I think a lot of people may be hearing us talk about abutments and companies make money on abutments, and they might not kind of get it. And who better to explain these innovations? So with your implant, I mean, why we got into it. you have two lines. You have the performance line, which is kind of, I believe, the stock standard bone level implant. And you have the matrix line. And it's really interesting to me, as someone who's been in the industry so long. You mentioned that, Straumann started with a tissue level implant, and the matrix line is a tissue level implant. So it's almost like we've gone full circle. It's all been about bone level. And after using it, I see numerous advantages, which we will get into. But please talk us about the matrix line. Talk us about, what is the innovations, why and how can you not use an abutment? And for those of you who don't know, this matrix line is basically marketed heavily for full arch doctors. Yes, it can be used for singles and bridges, but it is the kind of full arch implant that they're pushing forward. And one of the main advantages is no MUAs. Anyone who has used MUAs in their practice knows how annoying they are. It is a major pain point. We do it because we need angle correction, and it is just the way that we've always done it. But, they're fiddly, they're annoying. And I have to say, you're always hesitant when you hear a pitch by a sales rep or even the CEO, then you're even more hesitant. But when you do it for the first time, guys, for a full arch case, you put all the implants in, they're all tissue level, so they're all sticking just under the gum or slightly above, right there. And then you can scan it easily. There's no fiddling around with multi-units. More importantly, even if you're not comfortable loading them, 3 months go by, there is no second stage surgery. I mean, that was the main thing I was sold on. No second stage surgery. It's just there. The gum is healed around it. You can access the implants immediately. It makes life so easy. Not to say you can use it for every case, because if you see on my Instagram, I don't use TriMatrix for every case. And we'll get into the pros and cons, but please, that was a very long-winded introduction to your matrix line. Guys, give us all the details.
Okay, very good. Let's start maybe with how we came to this point of eliminating the abutment. First of all, it's something when I talk to my friends who are not from dentistry and I explain to them why there's an abutment, they say, why do you need the abutment? Why don't you put the crown directly on it, right? And there's a nice saying which goes, the biggest innovations of all time are those which seem obvious afterwards. And so we asked ourselves, how can you, and I've now here some examples, how can you actually eliminate the abutment? And this is now connected to the development of digital technology, CAD/CAM machines, which became more precise. And we said, if we produce a digital interface with a CAD/CAM machine, we have to think about how a CAD/CAM machine actually mills the interface of a crown. And CAD/CAM machines have round burrs. And so we said we need to have a rounded interface that is actually then inside in the implant configuration. And we obviously had to do a lot of engineering work to make sure that the loading is there, there's no breakages, that there's no wear. We have all the tests for this with the foundations here in Switzerland. And at the same time, that there's no screw loosening. Now, and we were able to actually do this. We have 13 patents on this now. So it's protected. And it's a very broad protection, that meaning any crown that is being attached directly to an implant. What we noticed is if we take away the abutment, we actually win height with which we can give rebirth to this concept of actually, we don't call it tissue level implant, we call it multi-level implant, because you can flexibly place the implant on different heights of the effectual collar. But when you look at the history of implants, tissue level versus bone level, there's a clear scientific indication that tissue level implants preserve the crestal bone level in a better way than bone level. Now, as we don't have an abutment, we now use this space with this wonderful healing collar in the or tissue level neck, which is 1.8 millimeters, that protects the soft tissue or nurtures it and moves the micro gap from the bone upwards. At the same time, you can still work directly on the platform. You don't have the problem of old tissue level implants that there was an abutment and the height was unbelievable and you couldn't work on it. And so this concept embraces two wonderful things. One, we eliminate the abutment, but we also reinforce biology by preserving the crestal bone and creating strong soft tissues, just like you said, with ideally one-stage surgery if you don't go immediately directly. Now, the actual interface of the matrix is structured in a way that we put a scan body on top of it, you scan it, and everything else then happens digitally, either in an Exocad software or a 3Shade software for CAD design. And you design your single crown, your bridge or full arch the way you like it, and then decide whether you go for printing or milling direct to the interface. So in the first step, I guess the matrix connection is an engineering feat where we've been able to define the loading properties in a way that the zirconia or titanium or PMMA crown, so there's no limitation on materials, can be attached directly to the connection without any problems. So that's the matrix idea. And by the way,
I have questions.
Yeah.
Go ahead. I have questions. I have a lot of questions because when I show people this, they constantly say the same thing. So who better to ask than you? But what were you going to say?
No, I was just about to say it's called matrix because of the connection. And the Matrix movie was the initiator of the idea for the Matrix. Because in the Matrix movie, you have to decide, do I stay in the analog world? Do I take the blue pill? Or do I take the red pill and move to the digital world? So you can imagine this to be like a digital interface to the digital world. And that's why we want to make sure that all digital devices that are in the market, from scanners to printers to CAD communities to guided surgery softwares, robotics, Yomi, etc., are compatible with this platform so that whatever clinic we come in, whatever customer listens to us, is able to start immediately with our implant.
Super cool, man. And that's, I think, what makes you most unique out of any dental implant company is the focus on digital. So the questions. I've actually asked a lot of maxillofacial surgeons in my area, why do we use a multi-unit?
Yeah.
Not to be a prick or anything. I'm just really curious because I don't know if there's actually a straight answer. Some of them say, cushioning. Some people say it's kind of the weakest link. So if something breaks, you want that to break. And I kind of think it's just dogma at this point. Look, I'm not sure if you have any good answers. I mean, is there any reason why we don't just go direct to fixture? Because I know, especially with full arch prosthetics, everything was, no, don't go direct to fixture. Zirconia shouldn't be direct to fixture. What are your thoughts?
No, I mean, there are reasons why the abutment was needed. And the main reason is that the interfaces of most of every implant company that is out there has actually some kind of corner, a hexagon, an octagon, a trilobe. Now, zirconia doesn't like corners because that will create friction points and it will break. And that's why I said it's actually an engineering feat that we created this round bevel 20-degree interface where the crown interface, the milled interface that we have designed for this CAD/CAM softwares fits perfectly. So it's really that traditionally implants have been designed, and that hasn't changed for 40 years. And that's why it's a little bit, it's time that this gets broken because we see all these wonderful gadgets coming into the market in the clinics, and yet we work with implants, with a mechanical connection, with an abutment. We take cement, we put it on top, we fixate the crown. That is not digital. And that's why we said, this needs to be broken, this process. And I guess that's also another challenge for the big companies that, they have these systems, they exist. And to now change and break the norm, besides the fact of losing the revenue for the abutment, you have these mechanical interfaces, which they have also patented, and you want to stick with them, but they are not really compatible with milling of zirconia. And so there's a real mechanical reason why that was not possible and is not possible with any implant company, as we really designed this interface specifically for modern digital manufacturing techniques like 3D printing and CAD/CAM. That's really the secret. And luckily we have a broad patent on it.
That's super cool, man. It's like I say, every time you speak, I feel like I'm learning. Seriously. It's like
it should be this way. But one more point I want to mention, because I get it when I go into a clinic or our team and we say there's no abutment, like everybody's like, how does that work, right? And then we explain what I just explained to you. And another point I want to just emphasize is the beauty of eliminating the abutment means that we can use a bigger screw to fixate the effectual crown. So a stronger screw plays a major role. So you can tighten it with 35 Newton centimeters, leading really to no screw loosenings in our scientific analysis. And secondly, you have more material on the crown. So you have a double effect. No abutment means you have more zirconia and a bigger screw. And that's actually, mechanically speaking, exactly what you should look for. Because especially with full arch dentistry, we get highly irritated by the fact that people use multi-unit abutments. And then they use a tiny Rosen, Voltex, or a desk screw or whatever it is. It's super small, where you have a lot of screw loosenings potentially even breakages due to the fact that the screw is just not up for the mechanical pressures that such a restoration has. This is not the case here. And, this question might come as we also have an angulated screw channel for 30 degrees, for angulation aspects. So the aspect that you eliminate an abutment actually leads to a stronger overall structure, more zirconia, more PMMA, more titanium, whatever you choose, and a stronger screw to fixate the overall restoration.
So one thing that people, and if you're just listening to the audio, I highly suggest you just Google TRI implants so you can see this. Maybe once you're in your office, so you can see how the crown actually connects to the implant. I'll put something on the screen. One thing when I show people this or talk about it, instantly they say, because in that interface where it engages and where you've milled the zirconia, you have that thin lip. And people, when they see that, they get freaked out. They think, what the hell is this? Why is that so thin? And it's got the curvature on it. And that's kind of your engagement to the implant. Do these things fracture?
No, I mean, it's a good point. It doesn't fracture because it doesn't take any load. This is just for positioning the effective crown. The effective load is strongly correlated to the shoulder of the implant and the effective screw. But the little lip that you're referring to is just a positioning device because it is you have one lock position.
Kind of like a hex. Like a hex.
Like a hex. It's just one position. Really. Yeah, exactly. Because it's digitally, we just need one position. So there's no pressure on it. And that's why we don't have any breakages. As a matter of fact, and we have, on our website, you find over 13 studies that we did on pre-clinical testing and clinical testing. We did a comparative study between an abutment, like actually a KS abutment from Straumann, tie-base abutment from TRI, and the matrix. And with the tie-bases, when you go to maximum load, what you do in these hydropulsar tests, you see where it breaks. You go as high and when it breaks. And it was interesting to see that, for example, a KS abutment breaks in the connection, whereas the breakage on a matrix, when you come to the peak level of loading, like 1,500 Newton centimeters, it is actually happening in the crown, which is a good sign, because you always want the connection to be preserved. This can be it's on our website. We can share that. So when we started this, I was with all honesty, I was also a little bit worried that this would work. We now have more than 4 years of clinical data, preclinical data, and I feel so bullish and so convinced that this is actually a superior solution from a biological standpoint, because we respect crestal bone level in soft tissues, and also from a prosthetic standpoint, because we provide the ability to really make personalized dentistry. Every tooth is exactly done for the patient, emergence profile. And secondly, we eliminate small screws on a multi-unit level element, or we eliminate, and this is really important, cement, because let's look at the aspect of peri-implantitis. It's a multidimensional problem, but I think two major problems for peri-implantitis are that the microgap of the abutment and implant is too close to the bone. And secondly, that there's cement between the crown and abutment, which with any restoration, there's lots of studies on it, this microgap becomes a macrogap over time. And we eliminate the two aspects. And also what we see in our scientific studies is that we have extremely solid crestal bone levels and nice soft tissues around our implant based on eliminating these risk factors. And I think that's very important to mention, because sometimes you just think about the idea, okay, I don't have to pay for an abutment, which is obviously great as well. There's actually a biological dimension and a speed dimension to work with less complexity. We're working with a lot of DSOs and clinic groups as well, where a lot of young dentists, which don't have so much experience, but they like digital dentistry. So what do? With our implant is placed, it's scanned, and the scan goes to the lab. And there's no communication anymore. Do we need a 17-degree angled abutment? Do we need a 15-degree angle? Do we need a collar height of 2 millimeter or 1 millimeter? There's no communication more. The lab designs the perfect crown for this patient. It gets delivered, either sent as a file to the printer that you have chairside, or the crown gets delivered. And I think that's the beauty of digitalization, that we reduce communication, that we increase precision, that we increase speed, and that we reduce cost.
Super passionate, man. The passion is coming out of you. It's amazing to hear you, because I think you're one of the most into digital dentistry guys I know in the industry. Seriously, you really push this hard. And I have a question though. So with the matrix line, obviously, at least when it was pitched to me, it was kind of all about full arch implants. Is that like a majority of your business, just full arch doctors, or what, what's the story? Is that your like itch to get market share, or is it also the implant everyday stuff?
No, I think with the majority of business is still with single and bridge, because when you look at overall distribution of business, 75 to 80% of all restorations that are done per year in America, for example, are single or bridge indications, not full arch. I just think that full arch gets this attention because it's probably the Mount Everest of dentistry. We will talk about photogrammetry and all the problems that are associated. And I think it's also the area where the biggest problems are, to really have a predictable same day immediate treatment, because that's our mission, that the patient leaves the chair with a restoration same day. And the deficiencies that we see with multi-unit abutments are great, with scanning are great. And I think we provide a lot of toolkits to help you in this scenario and eliminate risk factors. And that's why, yes, it seems that full arch is the main topic for us, but our bread and butter is also singles and bridges. Full arch is just much more visible because it's something that is, I would use the word more sensational in terms of the multitude of dimensions you have to think about, because full arch dentistry is not simple. Full arch dentistry is such a multi-step path. And if you have a problem with bite registration, the fit at the end won't work, right? So little steps, if you make little mistakes, if the scan is not right, you have a problem at the end. The accuracy of your work with the attention to detail is just the highest there. That's why we put so much emphasis on it, because we believe there's so much room to improve to the current days workflows. And so no, it's not only full arch. Actually, as a matter of fact, we have a so-called tooth-in-a-box solution where we work with select final zirconia mill partners, and we offer the implant with the crown as a tooth-in-a-box, tooth-in-bridge, tooth-in-arch solution. So you basically go to a website and you can order just the implant and the crown in one go. In the United States, actually, for $349, you get the crown and the implant. There's no abutment anymore. And that's an amazing price, obviously. And we still have a good margin because we focus on the implant. We eliminate the abutment. And the milling of a crown is much easier than before. There's no attachment to an abutment. There's no cement. You don't need a model. You don't need an analog. So I think we bring a lot of simplification there. So if anyone is interested in that, they should check it out on our website.
so that's a shameless plug, by the way. But
yeah.
Fair enough. It's a cool solution. But is that an immediate crown?
So you can order both, but you can. So this good point, Ahmad, because I think
obviously I assume it's a guide as well. It must be fully guided and an immediate crown, or how's this working?
No. First of all, if we talk about immediate crowns, and I still think today, in most cases, this is a PMMA or Onyx Tough 2, for example, printed crown. There are some clinics which are going for an immediate final zirconia crown, and actually there's not much evidence against it. I think it's a big discussion to have. You can go for an immediate final crown, but I think that's more the judgment of the dentist, not of us, because there are many dimensions of like how's the bone, how's the patient hygiene, how's the overall occlusion plays a major role. So we take a step back there as a medical device producer. We say, if you want to do it, you can do it, but it's a decision of the dentist whether you go for both. But we enable that you can do both, yes.
So sorry, I may have confused myself. Like the tooth-in-a-box solution, you said implant and a crown.
Yeah.
That means like a crown credit. I place the implant 3 months later, I get the crown. Is it like a credit or something? Or how does the tooth-in-a-box solution
work?
The
tooth-in-a-box. So the tooth-in-a-box solution is really always with the finest zirconia crown. And we have a turnaround time of 2 days with our lab. So when you order this, you can't do it same day. So this is really for then the final restoration of the patient. I think anyone working with an immediate restoration, this can only be done either if you have the lab right next to your door. We can't do this through a mailing company, basically, or you have the equipment chairside with a printer or a CAD/CAM machine, where we then obviously support with it. We have a so-called scan and smile design center, because what we notice is when you place an implant and scan it, there's no AI-based crown yet for implants. So you have to send it to some designer, and the turnarounds are really slow. If you have a designer next to you.
There is these days, Dentbird, a Korean company, does AI crowns, but I digress. Go ahead.
Yeah, okay. I will look into that. I wasn't aware that there's an AI-based crown for dental implants. For crown and bridge, yes. But in any case, we have created a design service center where when you scan it, you send us the file, and 20 minutes later, we provide you with the design that we send to your milling machine or to your printer, depending on what you want. So that ideally you can treat a patient in 1 hour. We call this concept scan and smile in 1 hour. You place the implant, you scan it, you send it to us, we design it. 20 minutes later, we send the design to your printer. You print the crown, and the patient goes home. No abutment, no cement.
Amazing.
And I think that's the excitement of digital technology, that patients these days should not go home without a tooth, because that's why they come to you, right? They don't want an implant, they want a tooth. And maybe just on that point, this whole scan and smile idea, or the tooth in the box idea, brought us really to this concept that as we have a digital interface for the matrix, we can now develop a suite of digital apps which help you in your everyday life. And I don't know if you have actually used that. One app is the Digital Healing Color Library. We have a library with 46 healing colors. You can download it on our website. You print it on your printer, and then you choose the right healing color. Because it's crazy that today people buy for $50, $60, $80, $100 round, cylindrical, gray healing colors that have nothing to do with the emergence profile of the patients. We provide you with a 46 healing color plate with perfect, nice emergence profiles that will always fit for your respective site. And you can print it for free, or it costs you $3 with a resin material on your printer, and you're independent. All right. Another thing is our ScanBridge app. You know that ScanBridge app is, you can print on your printer our predefined scan bridges, which you can click into the scan bodies of our implants. And especially this is designed for full arch. And you can connect the scan bridges to each of the healing colors so that your stitching of the scanner is guaranteed whilst you scan, because this is still one of the biggest problems in dentistry. I know you are actually the king of scanning there at that end, that we are not able, unfortunately, to really, in any indication, scan and have a reliable, precise scan result. That's why there's photogrammetry, and, I guess I'm very curious what you think about the lead scanner and these kinds of things coming out. But our ScanBridge helps you with any conventional scanner to actually scan a full arch, and you just print it out for free. It doesn't cost anything. It's part of our app suite for the matrix. And then we have an app for guides. We have an app for teeth to go. Interesting. You can actually design your full arch before you actually place the implants. You design the full arch restoration. You design the full arch restorations. We have a patented flexible connection below. You place the implants with a guided surgery, and then you take this final restoration, or this immediate restoration, place it, and based on the flexible components below, you create a passive fit, and the patient can go home. Because sometimes in full arch dentistry, or often, the biggest challenge is you have placed the implants, patient is in the chair, design starts, lab is working on it. Oh shit, doesn't fit. Patient sits there still 3 hours later. Everyone panics. I want to go home to my wife. These scenes, it's like that's reality in clinics, right? That these full arch cases sometimes lead to pressure situations later on. With a teeth to go solution from us, you print everything before, or mill before, print before, and insert it, and the patient goes home right after the implant has been placed. So these are some of the apps, and that's why we jokingly say the matrix is like an iPhone, and we provide you apps on this digital interface, the matrix, to help you with everyday situations in your clinic. And I think that's exciting, because we now take it to exactly what you have been saying, to the software side, that we actually are able to now think much more in software developments than hardware developments to solve clinical challenges of every day.
So you run a design lab, basically a highly efficient design lab. Yeah. Dentists can place implants, scan them, send them to your design lab, within 20 minutes, get a design. That's pretty amazing. Is that global? Yeah. 20 minutes?
That's global. Yeah. So we have 4 design centers around the world.
Amazing. And again, I just love this focus on digital. This makes you so unique in a world of so many implant companies. And some are very not digital. Some can't even get a digital library right. That's how undigital they are.
Yeah.
And then there's you pushing all of this. I'm going ahead of myself because I got some questions in between, but with the apps, while you talked about them and they're fresh, is there any fees, subscription fees, or just all free?
No, actually, we said our goal is to bring this matrix concept to the world as fast as possible. And we don't want to create more barriers. Basically, again, the idea of an iPhone, you buy the iPhone, you buy the matrix, you get complementary these apps for free. Because we really believe if we then start a discussion with the customer about there's a subscription fee on this and you have to pay for this and for this, it turns you off. It's like when you buy a Tesla, right? I mean, you don't want to pay then the Spotify fee and you have to pay the, I don't know, any gadgets that are extra on the, that is not so cool. So we wanted to make it as simple as possible, build up, have little resistance, and really bring an added value, bring the added value of the digital connection to the customers.
Super cool, man. And with back to the design lab, actually. So I feel like because you got rid of the multi-unit and everything is digital and it's so easy to send files around the world, that kind of facilitates this whole vision that you're running. Because without a multi-unit, it's much easier to scan something, send it to the lab, and then get something that you can print and put on the implant direct. I mean, that is not possible before because everything was multi-unit dependent.
Yeah.
And it's kind of mind-blowing. It's all full circle. I have a question, though. So with the filage things, how much can you correct with your implants? Because obviously multi-units, for all of the bad things about them, they are important. Because I read a very interesting stat the other day from a prominent company, and it's over 30 million implants are placed annually. 30 million. And out of those 30 million, only 10 to 15% are guided or navigated.
Yeah.
So it's a teeny sliver.
Yeah.
And what I find with your implants, Tobias, is that, especially for filage, because I know because you can make the screw channel big and I can get the angle screw in, it's not quite the same degree as angle correction as a multi-unit. Mm-hmm. You have some wiggle room, but a multi-unit gives you significant advantages. And what I'm finding in my personal cases, because I have the TriMatrix system, and if it was up to me, I would use this thing for every filage case because it makes my following appointments so easy and fast, and I may keep some money. But where I'm finding I can't use it is, for example, when the angles are there's not enough bone, and I have to do very sharp distal angles for an all-on-4 case. That is one time where I've tried it, and I'm really pushing my milling machine. And we're getting breakages. And then in those cases, I'm finding, no, I have to use multi-units. I have to use an implant that allows multi-units. What do you think about that? Is that a fair comment? Or
I think it depends. But first of all, when we talk about printing, there's no limitation really in terms of angulation. You can go wherever you want. Yeah. And on the milling side,
I was struggling with the zirconia, but you're 100% right. Printing, you can print anything. And if we get to the point where we're printing finals and we're confident with the onyx tufts and the rodent titans, which I personally like to finish on zirconia, but printing, you can do everything.
No, I agree with you. I think zirconia is still the premium quality solution. But we see actually, just as a side note, and I will come to your point, we see that onyx tuft 2 is now being used more and more as sort of a long-term provisional. And if it breaks, let's reprint it because it doesn't cost anything. I think it's not our position.
Your reputation.
Yeah, exactly.
One thing that
exactly. I'm just saying it's happening. We as a medical device provider would never recommend that. I think, we still believe in the long-term solution with zirconia. Now, and when it comes to zirconia, it really depends on the milling machine you're working with. And just to give you an example, with our tooth in the box milling center partner, just like this Friday, for example, and don't ask me how this implant got placed, but we milled a 72-degree angled implant situation on the matrix. And I'm happy to share the picture you cast. I don't know if you want to. 72 degrees, okay? So it's actually done on a Versa mill. So that's why I say it depends on the mills, right? And we are seeing a trend with the milling machine companies of widening more and more the angulation level. So my answer is, if you place up to 72 degrees angulated implants, which you shouldn't, but if you do, we have always a solution with our milling center partner to mill the finer zirconia. If you have a chairside lab, it highly depends on the milling machine. And then, yes, I agree. If you have a maybe more limited milling machine that only mills up to 35-degree angulation and you place it on 50 degrees angulations, we actually have a so-called rescue abutment for you, just for the ones who really want to work chairside in their clinics. Because the milling machines are sort of the angulation.
I'm not running no slouch. I'm running a PM7. Like it's a beefy mill. I'm not trying to do this on a VHF small chairside mill. I'm running a PM. On that point, the only other reason, and this is just personal experience, that I'm finding in our group of dentists, because we also have a group practice, not quite as good as yours, but I can dream one day, is that to me, the TriMatrix implant system for full arch really should be guided. Because if you do things freehand with any other implant system, you can save your butt with some crazy multi-units. But I feel like with the TriMatrix system, if you just go in there freehand and you're not very good and the implants are sticking out like something like this, then not even the best milling machine in the world can save you. But I actually had no idea about this emergency abutment. So there you go. You have something covered.
Yeah, we have.
Do you agree that you're pushing the guided workflow? I guess that's what I'm asking. Yeah. Are you kind of pushing guys do it guided because it's better and arguably the outcomes are better, or?
Yeah, I don't say, say if we talk about guided, I think there's a pilot guide approach and then there's the full guided approach. I understand why many people don't go for the full guided approach because, the whole planning situation is much more intense than just going in and place the implants. I'm a believer in pilot guide situations where you at least define the angulation. And yes, therefore, this would be a recommendation. But that's something where we have noticed it's outside of our scope of education. We can recommend it. But, with the big full arch clinics, which place a lot of implants, it's sometimes the resistance is very high. But to be honest, just to make the point, we haven't experienced really a problem with this angulation part because either you're over and we can give you sort of a correction aspect, this is actually what most of our customers do. They use our implant and they love the fact that there's no abutment and that there's no cement and that you can work seamless. And they just place they have a much more conscious surgical process. Whereas beforehand they were, just like dropping it wherever sort of it is, because you, as you nicely said, I will always correct it somehow with an abutment, which is deficiency. And, I just want to make this point. It strikes me so much we in this industry have just accepted the deficiencies of abutment now to a norm, which is unbelievable. Now, I obviously am on the other side, but out of a patient care perspective, it is just not responsible almost to say that we have, we use cement, we use little screws that become unloose. We have multiple full arch clinic customers, which have customers repeatedly coming in just to screw down the full arch restoration because it got loose. It sort of has become accepted, and
when a crown comes off, when a crown comes off an abutment, and the tissue grows over it, that's also a mega.
Or if you have recession, you see the abutment. There are so many deficiencies of an abutment, it's unbelievable. But anyhow, we experience with our full arch partners that once they laugh and embrace this concept, they are also more consciously planning their cases and placing the implants. Plus, often we experience, what's the reality of the workflow today? Modern full arch clinics mostly have a printer. They go for a print. And if it's really crazy angulation, you can print even up to 60, 70 degrees if you want. Not that this should be the norm, but and then we have always our milling center solution where we can provide you with a zirconia. By the way, in the United States, we provide the zirconia full arch for $999. Yeah,
that's crazy.
So think about producing this in your chairside. It's probably cheaper to order it from our installation. So I don't see the limitation in that sense. And I mainly also see the advantages of biology and, better outcome for the patient, which should be our ultimate goal as professionals.
Might be a little biased as well, just a little. No,
my name is Tobias. What do you expect?
No, okay. Do you think about implants? We're going to go back to tissue level. Do you think because I haven't heard of anyone talk about, sorry, multi-level. I keep blundering your whole brand.
Thank you.
No
problem.
The brand. Multi-level, tissue level, same, not really, but you know what I mean.
Yeah.
Do you think industry is going to start going back to this? Because I don't know, ever since I graduated close to 10 years ago, I have not heard anyone talk about tissue level at all. It was all bone level. And you know, when you start using them, you're like, what the hell? These things actually give a lot of advantages. So do you think it's really genius? I actually never thought about that it's the fact that before tissue level had an abutment on it, and that was actually part of the issue. And now that we don't need it, this is actually, why don't we go back to tissue level, you know?
Yeah, exactly. And I think this answers a little bit the question, sort of a renaissance of tissue level or multi-level implants. First of all, just last week, I read a study from Spain that 25% of all implants placed over time develop peri-implantitis. Now, what are the reasons for peri-implantitis? Coming back again, micrograph is too close to the bone level is there, cement is being used, two factors which we eliminate with our implant. Now, the renaissance hopefully comes through us, you know, because the problem remains, in my point of view, because if you ask me, will this be presented more by other companies? They will maintain, they will still have that problem of abutments on top of it, which creates an occlusal height problem. And that's why I think, you know, our innovation is quite disruptive, because we connect best of all worlds, prosthetic simplicity and versatility, at the same time biological sustainability. So I think it's tougher for other companies to do because they still have the abutment on top, which then creates this occlusal problem. But I think in terms of long-term health of implants and patients, there should be a rethinking of just always dropping the implant as far below the bone with a bone level implant versus having this classic, I mean, Straumann called it originally the biological width, 1.8 millimeters, to preserve, to give the root, the crestal bone enough piece to develop and maintain and have nice soft tissues as a collar around it.
Super interesting. Moving on to the apps, because we did talk about that like 20 minutes ago. So the apps that you have developed are also kind of unique. And one thing is the direct-to-fixture, the multi-level. But one thing that I really was impressed by what you guys are doing are the apps. And yes, I did use your collars, by the way. They're amazing. We print heaps of them in the lab. Cool. They're actually really cool. And it makes us think. You're totally right. It's one of those moments where it's like, why doesn't anyone offer this? Like, why are we still using these peak circular, just generic healing abutments when a lot of people have printers now, and it's going to keep growing? And for those who don't know, you just basically download the library from TRI. It has all these different healing colors, and you can print them you can print almost like 30 or 40 on most printers in one go. And then you just have them there and you use them on the day of your surgery, different sizes, different shapes, kind of like, you know, it gets around this annoying thing that we used to do with the little templates and the flowable composite and the cylinders. It's all these pain points that you've solved. But that's actually not my interest. My interest is the scan bridge, because I feel like you released the scan bridge. And again, for those of you who are listening, scan bridge is a full arch scanning solution. So one of the main issues with scanning full arch is the field of view of the scanner is only so big. And as we go across the arch, without a doubt, literature shows we lose a lot of accuracy. And so scan bridge is literally what it says. It's like a little bridge that you can print out. You clip it between your implants, and it gives the scanner a bridge. And I think you were one of the first companies to release something like this, surely. I don't think I haven't really seen any other implant company do it. In fact, I think you're one of the first to pioneer this idea of a bridge. And then you just saw heaps of companies do it. Yeah. There's companies all around. Did you notice that?
Yeah, we noticed it. That's sort of like sometimes painful because we couldn't patent the scan bridge. But then again, you know, the prime focus is that we provide our customers really better solutions, and that's what we did. And then, there were some followers, even Straumann, I think. But it has been a valuable solution, I think, and it touches in this whole topic of, you know, how good can scanners be? What does photogrammetry mean? How can we support as an implant company with things like the scan bridges? And we tried again to, as always, when we look out, we have 4 values which we believe in our company, which is Swissness, because we are from Switzerland. Performance, we want to provide always a solution to the customer that enhances his performance. And then the two differentiating values are simplicity, to have a very simple approach to the problem solving, and fourthly, thinking digital, always having this within the workflow. And I think with the ScanBridge, we provide a very simple, printable, cheap, it doesn't cost anything actually, solution to guarantee the stitching around the full arch jaw. And it's being used in many cases. Now, if you have already a photogrammetry device like iCam or Micromapper or Tuple 3D or whatever there is, use it. I think it's a very precise device, but scanners are getting better. ScanBridges are supporting these scanners. So I think we're seeing here an advent of alternative solutions which don't cost $40,000.
Okay, so let's say photogrammetry is the gold standard. I don't think anyone can argue with that.
Yeah,
photogrammetry, especially I would say pick an iCam, especially. The others, but let's not get into that.
Yeah.
Actually, Micromap is also very good. But anywho's, if that's the gold standard, I guess the first thing people think when they see the ScanBridge, and I have to say, it's worked for me and sometimes it hasn't. And I think it's not because of, the ScanBridge doesn't work. I really think it's based on the proficiency of the person scanning.
Yes.
That plays a huge impact because
Absolutely.
some people really have no idea. And there's no amount of little clip-ons that is going to save them.
Yes.
But look, people see the ScanBridge and they may think it's a gimmick. I guess the question is, look, I know for myself, I don't rely on it because I have iCam, I have Elite here, I have everything. But for those who are getting into full arch, does it actually work? Someone who is getting into full arch and you promise them the ScanBridge thing and they do the scan, they send it to the lab and then they get an ill-fitting restoration. I mean, that can really beat you down. Is it something that you're pitching as, no, this is a solution that I will put my name on and it actually works? Or are you basically trying to, I don't want to use the pun, but bridge the gap and offer something that's better than just scanning alone? What's the thought process?
No, I think you raised an extremely important point. The ability of the scanner plays a major role, right? And I think this applies not only to full arch scanning, it applies to scanning in general. And we are sometimes shocked when we talk with customers and they say, I'm fully digital, I have a scanner, I have a printer. And when we come to the office and it just starts by switching off the light, right? Little things which are important, or is the AI algorithm clicked on or not? Little things which are important, and we are over again surprised how low the level is. And so, yes, this plays a bigger role compared to photogrammetry, where you put this in and then you scan it in a couple of seconds. But that's why we go into every first case for with the ScanBridge with our clinical staff and supporting the scanner person. But if this is guaranteed, then yes, it's a reliable source for the PMA or printed bar, any full arch anyhow. And for the final zirconia, we recommend a verification check just to be sure that this is actually done accurately. And yeah, I think it takes, if you have an iCam or, the photogrammetry device, it's definitely the gold standard. But if you don't have it, this is a fantastic tool to work with. And just as a reference, our biggest customer, and I think it's the biggest clinic in Europe, they place 40,000 implants a year in 2 sites.
Crazy.
They use this consistently. They don't have photogrammetry. They only do full arch. They focus on full arch and they use a ScanBridge. So it's working. And therefore, anyone who's, I always say, if you are in the full arch game and you place and you do 20 full arches a month, buy a photogrammetry device. It's because you don't have the time maybe to do the scanning. But if you do less, I think about the investment that you need to do, because the $40,000 could be invested much better and use the ScanBridges. So we are excited by it. I think it's a phenomenal support for anyone who wants to do full arches, and it works. I mean, we have multiple cases that show that. Yeah.
Yeah, no, I highly respect that you did say the verification check part, because you never want to get doctors into trouble, and I respect that you don't go straight into the hardcore marketing thing. This is the best thing ever. I think we all know that at the very least, guys are getting this for free. So, and it's the only implant system that does it. So by all means, you can try it. at least for your temps. I mean, I always use it when I'm using TriMatrix. I use it always for my temps. And even me, I've done a few cases, just scan bridge and hand on heart, they've sit passively. Part of the reason of that is a lot of the photogrammetry devices don't work direct to fixture. So you're a bit, I wouldn't say cornered, but when you use Tri, it's kind of hard to get it to talk to a lot of photogrammetry devices because it's not multi-unit based. But anyway, at least you have that.
But a good point, you raised it. I mean, there are PIC adapters, there are ICAM adapters for the Matrix, and we have created adapters for all the other systems that are out there, Micro, Mapper, Tuple 3D.
I had no idea.
Yeah, so we have all the adapters, so it's no problem. You can buy them.
I had ICAM, and I swear, I kid you not, and I don't want to put Horston on the podcast like this. I swear I asked them and they said it's maybe at the time it wasn't available. I have to talk to them. Okay.
But we have a direct. Yeah, it has become available beginning of this year. So I mean, happy to provide this to you. Definitely.
I'm keen. No. Okay, so ScanBridge, that's it. Let's talk about photogrammetry, which is super interesting, right? And I totally agree. I think with the recent releases, the days of photogrammetry, I wouldn't say they're numbered, but there's definitely a lot more market pressure. It's funny because Shining 3D released the Elite. I kid you not, 2 days later in my email box, 15K off photogrammetry device. I'm not joking. Big sale. Okay, so we all agree photogrammetry is the gold standard for full arch. Everyone, you should be using it. If you're not using some form of photogrammetry or verification jig or bridge or something, you're just going to hurt yourself. Okay, you're going to have a lot of issues, but they cost 40K. And for the average dentist who, let's face it, the people doing 20, 30 arches a month, that's like 0.1%. The average dentist may do 1 arch or 2 arches a year, maybe. And then the full arch guys, I would say 10 a month is reasonable for the starters. And when you're in that sort of category, buying a PIC or an ICAM doesn't make sense. What do you think, Tobias, about this Elite workflow? Actually, I have a question for you. Do you know how it kind of works at the moment? Have you looked into it?
Well, we've looked into it and we are close to testing. I have to admit, we haven't tested it yet. I guess they're getting bombarded by anyone who's active in the digital space to sort of get more ideas on it. I mean, first of all, I can only say we have a solution with the ScanBridge. So, I mean, the ScanBridge, I think, goes a long way to really providing for all of these dentists who don't buy a photogrammetry device a fantastic solution. But then again, when we look at the development of scanners, I think let me put it this way, if it is true what they claim, I think it's the future. And then it should be as well. I mean, when you talk about, Rune and all these people, from all these kind of 3Shape and eventually we will get there. And to be honest, I think it's overdue. I think, everybody works so much on scanner is really the ultimate entry product into a digital clinic for aligners, for night guards, for implants, for crown bridge, that we should get to that level. And so in a way, it doesn't surprise me. And I sincerely hope, it works, but we have no confirmation yet. So all we can judge from the outside, it looks promising. I don't know. What's your opinion? I mean, you're the expert. I would love to hear your view.
I've used it clinically, and I'll put it out there straight away. And even the company says it. I mean, it's genius marketing, intraoral photogrammetry. Firstly, anyone who's read about photogrammetry a little bit knows, and Tobias, I'm preaching to the choir, you need 2 cameras because photogrammetry works on some form of triangulation, and it doesn't have 2 cameras. So I don't think it's photogrammetry. I think what they did is very genius, where with this scanner, they ship you out a scan body kit. That scan body kit is not just a bunch of generic scan bodies. It has a barcode. And so you use your scanner to scan the barcode, and then your software knows the exact digital library of that kit. Kind of like how Osteon Nexus does it, but locked away in their lab. They're opening it up. So what that scanner does, it's not so much photogrammetry as we know it, but really, really smart algorithms and scan body stitching. That's how I think it's working, and that's what it looks like. Because what you do is you position all these flat, long scan bodies, kind of like ScanBridge, and kind of like the trend with full arch scan bodies, flat, long, and then you put your scanner above them, and it recognizes the dots. It's not really scanning like a scan body. It just reads the dots. It's a genius workflow. What they did is a workflow. And it's like what we talked about at the start. It's really interesting that you mentioned it. It's all a workflow game. And so all the scan is doing is recognizing the dots. And because you scan the barcode and you only have to do it once, it knows that digital library. And they've obviously measured that digital library very accurately. And then it aligns it. And then you align that with your edentulous scan. And I have to say, I've done a few cases. It's worked, which is kind of mind-blowing. I've done a few cases where I've taken a scan with iCam, photogrammetry, normal scan bodies, just the cylinders, and Elite. And obviously the cylinders were really bad. iCam, it's iCam. It always works. It's amazing. But the Elite was surprising. It worked. And I totally agree. If they can pull this off, I think they just revolutionized the game big time. And I think you need to get your implant adapter into their workflow, because right now they only do multi-units. But in saying that, look, my sample size is small. I've only had it a couple of weeks here testing clinically. What I'm actually doing, I will share this with you. What I'm actually doing is writing a piece of literature right now. With a group at our IDD clinic. We're taking a model. Unfortunately, we can't do it on a human because it'll take too long, but we're taking a standardized model that we've measured. I'm not going to say how we measured it, but we're not doing volumetric, a little more complicated than that. And I've scanned it with every scanner I have, which is 26 scanners, to see which one is good at full arch, which one is not. And I know I applied everything. The other thing we've done, that's going to be one paper, which scanners are good at full arch, because there's been some interesting talks of people having major issues with Trios 5. And apparently Trios 3 is much better for full arch. But anyway, the other thing I've done, and we're currently data collecting, and we're going to publish this, is compare Elite to iCam to normal scanning. And I will happily share that with you. But I think that's what we need. And again, it goes back to full circle. It's very tricky because you said it yourself. Research is not keeping up. How do you navigate this as a dentist? Do you rely on companies? Do you rely on KOLs that are often paid by companies? It's a tricky minefield. What are your thoughts?
Well, my thoughts is rely on the Institute for Digital Dentistry as a recommendation.
yeah, take the money. Thanks for saying that.
No. But honestly, I mean, you are bridging the gap, in my opinion, because you do exactly what should be done. Like, what the car magazines in Germany, cars are big here in Germany. They test the Audi against the Mercedes, and they say what are the features and how do they actually work. So they give a real life feedback, and I think that's very important because digital is a lot about usage. How you use the devices and how they actually work in certain indications. Still, the gap remains that I think certain scientific data, long-term scientific, should be aggregated. But I think you're filling a wonderful gap there where you can get some orientation in the purchase decisions that you do. The most important thing I actually tell people, I think we experience, obviously, the protocol around the matrix with a lot of different companies. And we also gain experience of what can be used. So we actually have a recommended partner list for each of these devices to help the doctors with their choice if they need to make an investment in the area. But the biggest fundamental point is, if you're not in digital, you should make the step into digital. Because there's, if we talk about Europe here, I don't know about New Zealand or Australia, but digitalization is still below 50% of intraoral scanners in the clinics. And for us,
and you guys make all the stuff. Make all the stuff.
And we both who are in this area, we say, how is this possible? How could you potentially not invest in a scanner? Right. And but then you're gonna have the problem of aging dentists, like the more and more all the baby boomers that are going into pension, they don't want to invest anymore. So I think the good news is there's a lot of good stuff coming out there. It's getting better and better. The competition helps to drive everybody to the next level. And it brings me back to my point that I think it's super exciting, not only for us as professionals here on the medtech side, but also for clinicians, right, to work these days in this environment. My recommendation is to rely on implant companies which are agnostic. You can work with any digital equipment. You don't lock yourself into some systems so that you are always able to use whatever you're buying.
And it's like what you said, man, eloquently at the start. And I say this a lot as well, is that it's never been a more exciting time to be a dentist. And I strongly believe that. I mean, you think about the last 10, 15 years compared to the last 50 of amalgam and PFM and how much is changing. I mean, it can be super exciting, but it can also be super daunting. And I guess that's what I try to do, is just inform and give value. But look, I really appreciate the compliment. To finalize this amazing episode, I've really enjoyed our chat, Tobias. What are some exciting things, either coming from TRI, or what have you seen? Is there anything that you could share with the audience that you feel like this is really cool stuff, either from digital or implants or printing, or have we kind of seen it all? Obviously, IDS is around the corner.
Yeah.
And anyone who's coming to that, come say hi to me, come say hi to Tobias. He'll be at the TRI booth.
Yeah.
What do you think? What are you seeing in the industry?
Actually, we're launching something exciting at the IDS, and all I can say is visit us at the IDS. I can't put it out here. So I think, innovation is our blood. We constantly bring out new stuff. So unfortunately, I can't talk about the next big thing that we're launching, but it will be at the IDS. We will launch it. Otherwise, I think the biggest thing that fascinates me and really is disrupting this space strongest in my point right now is 3D printing. 3D printing is just like accelerating chairside dentistry, meaning we can provide patients faster with teeth at lower cost and more customized. Now, whether it's provisional or final, it's up to decision to the dentist. Materials are getting better and better. But when we look at the speed of development, when we developed the Matrix, we didn't think about 3D printing. We didn't have it in our mind. And now 3D printing is like oil in the fire of our product, because the 3D printing on the Matrix is like so intuitive. The connection of the printed device, whatever it is, a healing collar, a final restoration, a provisional restoration, always fits perfectly passively based on the configuration that we've set up in the respective printer setups. Materials are getting better. So I think this excites me most. And not only for implants, right? I think as a dental clinician, for all sorts of aspects of your clinical treatments. So that's probably the biggest point I'm looking at. And if we think about the year 2024, and all the tailwinds of digitalization, scanners which are improving, like the lead scanner, the 3D printing improving with resin materials like the Onyx Tough 2 or Samara Crown, and guided surgery becoming easier. Now our guided surgery is super simple to use. Then I'm very optimistic about what's ahead. And maybe that's a good closing word. That's why I believe, we are, and now I take an analogy from my Aussie time, because I spent 1 year of my life as a student in Australia. I was supposed to study, but I surfed all the time at the Gold Coast. And so we are surfing on the right side of the wave, and it's an exciting wave, and it's a big wave. And I think we have a super cool surfboard, so that in 2030 we are in, I think, an extraordinarily good position. And so I think so are you. And thank you again, for giving the airtime to us, and also to using our products, because that's also special. I acknowledge that.
I appreciate it, man. And you're totally right. Both of our businesses are in digital, and it's crazy to think, when we started this, both of us, you did your thing, I did education. Imagine if we didn't focus on digital. Imagine if you said you weren't even focused about printing. Let's say you didn't even focus about digital, and it'd be like, God, where am I now? That would be the issue.
Yeah.
And I think we're both very lucky in the sense that we doubled down on this key aspect, which is now just blown up.
Yeah.
But look, Tobias, I have one last question. I know you're a busy man. It was in my mind 30 minutes ago. Last question. Do you have any fear, even with printing ScanBridge, printing crowns, full arch, do you have any fear putting that responsibility with the dentists? Because, when you send it to a lab, a milling center, these things, we all know what technicians are like. You are part of a DSO of technicians. You know what they're like. They're very detail-orientated people. They do it right. They follow all the steps. Do you have any fear with allowing, the floodgates to open with dentists printing in-house, especially with ScanBridge? I mean, I know you're not doing detailed AI scan body matching like the Elite does. You're kind of just giving a bridge so you can continue scanning. But even with the crowns, is that going to create issues for your companies if you just give all these files out and doctors are not printing right, not post-processing right? I mean, to this day, there's no real standard workflow for this stuff, especially for a lot of reasons, whether you spray them, you wipe them, you dunk them. What are your thoughts?
Yeah. I mean, obviously, we can't control the whole value chain, but what we can control is the quality assurance. And that's why we created actually a certification platform. So it's sort of like a learning management software where every user of TRI has to go to our TRI Academy platform and go through a brief learning sequence and print a crown, send us the files so that we are sure that they have done everything correct. Now, in terms of the post-processing, how they treat the crown, I think it's the same like before, where they made some temps that was in the hands of the dentist, and it's the responsibility of the dentist. But making sure that this connection is printed or milled in the right way, we have set up a certification platform where you get certified to work with our product. And I think that's the best thing we can do. And to be honest, when I look at the statistics, we don't see any problems. We just released a brand new study from the United States where we monitored 1,500 zirconia crowns being produced in the market with 0% screw loosening, 0% breakage. And this is now over a time period of 2 years. So now we feel very confident. And I think we have the right control mechanisms in place with the certification platform.
That's super cool, the learning management platform. Anyway, my friend, I could keep asking you questions. Yeah. We'll be here for another hour. We have to stop the train at some point.
Yes.
You're a busy man. Guys, that is another episode of the Digital Dentistry Decoded podcast. We have been super fortunate to have Tobias Richter here with us. The guy is kind of like Elon Musk of digital dentistry.
Oh my God.
He runs like a DSO. He runs this, he runs this, he runs this, he runs this. I don't know how he has enough time, but look, man, I really appreciate you spending the time with us and you know, an hour of your precious time, hour and a half, something like that. And for anyone who's listening, please go check them out. I'll be there at IDS. I'm not speaking for you, unfortunately, but that's okay. Maybe next year. But I will be there at the booth. Yeah, for sure, man. I'll be there at the booth and I will be happy to meet you all. I'm sure Tobias will be happy to see you all. And again, a big thank you for everyone listening. A big thank you for Tobias. Subscribe to the Digital Dentistry Decoded podcast, like, comment, all of that, so you can stay up to date with all things digital dentistry. Thanks for watching and thanks for listening.